Hi, this is David, entry number 649. Here around a similar I've recorded before. Wanted to talk about two things today, and hopefully I can get through them fairly rapidly. I'm very curious about this cafe. I'll go check that out later. There's two things I wanted to talk about. One is elderly people here in Korea, and two is the question or the issue, or I suppose better said, the idea of altruism, which I've discussed briefly before, and I came to kind of a stalemate decision that I've been unhappy with for quite some time. Okay, so firstly, I'd like to discuss the elderly here, and it won't be a huge discussion. I just wanted to raise this point. We have in the U.S. we have a history of about 300 years, 400 years, and 600, 400 years, and through that time, we were, for various reasons we won't get into, we were kind of, well, at least for the last 200, we've been kind of like the cusp or the tip of the spear in terms of technology, science, a lot of these subjects. Yes, of course, there are some kind of like things you could say, that you could argue, that you could kind of debate, but for a large portion of things, of these kind of ideas, we were kind of the king. And yes, I grant Europe and all that also had a large, sorry, I have to run, had a large influence over these like modern ideas. But what I'm trying to say is that we matured at an accelerated rate, but at our own pace, is what I want to say. We matured at an accelerated rate, but at our own pace. So it wasn't other times dictating our advancements. It was our own kind of methodology and technique and whatever, people, culture, society. But here in Asia, in China and Korea, you've seen this kind of explosion in the last 30 years, 40 years now, from agrarian societies to technological powerhouses. And we kind of look as to kind of like, how, and that's obvious because this is modern times, and we kind of see this kind of explosion in the fact that they did not get to set the pace at which they evolved. It was what's known in evolutionary terms. It was not really, but it was known as a punctuation, a point, a fine, definitive point that they saw themselves in. And this allowed them to kind of reap the rewards that the U.S., Britain, the West kind of worked so hard for, invented, created, developed. And these kind of countries were just able to pop into these kind of fortunes or this kind of technology. And the roundabout way of saying that, getting to my point, is that because they popped so hard, because this kind of these countries developed so quickly, were forced to develop so quickly, you see the fact that the elderly in these countries were completely and utterly left behind. And I mean that in the 100% of the meaning, that these people, these older people, I'm talking now, currently in their 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even hundreds, where were completely and utterly left behind. This country, now I'm talking about this country, is built on kind of the broken, arthritic backs of the older generation. You see a lot of older people, like in their 70s, completely hunched over. Completely, like their body looks like an L, like an upside down L. And and it's just it's really sad, because these are the people who sacrifice so much, who are, for the most part, have no formal education, and now are treated like, kind of like how India treats the untouchables, ignored, kind of looked down upon. It's really sad, and it's a very true thing. So there's no really good answer. It's kind of just something I wanted to bring up. The other point I wanted to talk about a little bit, maybe, I don't know if I have time now, but is the concept of altruism. And I'll talk about this more later, but I was talking with one of my pupils, and we brought up this idea of altruism and the fact that it's a good thing, right? I mean, you help other people. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter whatever your reason, but at the end of the day, if you're committing altruistic behavior, philanthropy, whatever, you're doing good. You're doing something good, and that's kind of all that needs to be said about that. Having said that, is true altruism, in its definition, selfless acts? Is any act we perform as human beings truly unselfish? And I think for a large percentage of sociologists and cultural psychologists would say, or societal psychologists or whatever, say that no, there's no such thing as real altruism. Everything is motivated by our own kind of desire to either feel better about ourselves, or it all comes back to kind of a egocentric thing. But while we were talking, I thought of this thing where it was like, there are points, there are situations, very specific set of parameters around them, but there are situations wherein altruism, I do think that there are certain altruistic behaviors that humans are capable of, that happen occasionally, that are truly selfless, that are truly kind of thinking about other people and completely disregarding our own safety, our own health, our own being. And where I'm going with this is that imagine yourself in a situation wherein you're standing at a bus stop, and where there's a 2-year-old child next to you, and you see a car, a large truck, about 100 yards out, begin to come at you, and it starts to kind of swerve a little, and it's coming directly at you and this small child. You have, it's 100 yards away, you have a couple seconds to react. Within that amount of time, you can perform one action, one definitive action. One, you jump out of the way, and the small child is destroyed. 2, you push with all your force, with the force of 1,000 suns, you push that small child out of the way, and you are hit by the truck, and you are destroyed. And there's something deep down, and I don't know exactly where this comes from, because it's not self-serving in any regard, because it will ultimately destroy your life. But there's something in us that tells us to save that child. Inert. There's something in us that tells us to push the child out of the way and disregard our own safety. And in that instances of life being threatened and having extremely short reaction time, that is that wherein lies the human's capability to perform truly altruistic behavior. That's what I think this is the thing. I don't know, like, I really feel like there's something to that. I could be completely off. There could be more studies on this that say it's actually some kind of like selfish thing to want to rescue another child that will in a decision that will ultimately kill you. But I strongly feel that in this very specific situation, that we are as humans capable of performing truly altruistic behavior. So having said that, that's all I wanted to say today. I might get into it a little more later. Thanks for watching. I'll talk with you in a couple of days. Bye.